Human rights are universal. Unfortunately, in many countries, they're often violated. But what can be done to prevent human rights violations? Let's listen to Mary Lawler, the United Nations Special Rapporteur for Human Rights Defenders.
Physical accompaniment is still one of the great and effective tools to protect human rights defenders. It is a sign of solidarity. It provides physical protection and boosts morale to communities who are under great pressure and stress. Moreover, making the issues visible in the public sphere at local, regional and international level is a further source of support.
Peace Watch Switzerland, a Swiss NGO, is protecting communities and individuals who fight for their right and in doing so expose themselves. We have been sending international observers to several countries for over 20 years.
Honduras is a beautiful country and very rich in natural resources. However, poverty is huge, corruption is widespread, and legal and social justice are very weak. Most of communities in rural areas do not have titles for the land they live from. So their livelihoods are directly concerned by investments in projects in extractive industries, like, for example, mining, like production of electric energy, or also tourism. Most of the time, investors do not really and previously consult the communities about their projects. And interests of communities are not always considered. If these communities then claim their rights for participation and for being informed, they can easily be criminalized. Their leaders can be attacked, can be menaced, and the whole community can be displaced.
Y la lucha mía es defender la tierra.
I fight for the protection of our land, for the livelihood of my children and my grandchildren. I want to live in a free country without being bullied and threatened by owners of large estates. Living in freedom and peace is a human right. That is what we demand. We want to defend our land, and in order to do that, we have to be well organized. The problem here in Zacate Grande is huge, and that is a cause for serious concern. People from the village are being displaced, robbed, criminalized, and arrested. We will not allow this to happen. That is why people from Zacate Grande have founded an organization in order to defend our beaches, our land, and the mangrove woods. Because that is what the big landowners are after.
In Palestine and Israel, the protracted conflict and the Israeli military occupation of Palestinian territory is leading to grave human rights violations and violations against international law. Many Palestinians' access to land and water is severely restricted by Israeli authorities. House demolitions and evictions take place on a nearly daily basis, and children are suffering from harassment by Israeli settlers on their way to school. Many Palestinians also have to wait in line for hours on their way to work, passing through checkpoints. Local churches and Israeli and Palestinian peace activists resist the occupation non-violently and fight for justice and peace.
The examples we heard are typical for human rights violations in many countries around the world. A global analysis of the Irish human rights organization Frontline Defenders states that in 2020, the rights that were most often violated were the rights for access to land, the rights to protect environment, and the rights of indigenous people. National and international players often impose their economic and political interests using violence. According to the same report, in 2020, 331 human rights defenders were murdered in 25 different countries. So what can a small Swiss NGO offer in constellations dominated by violence? How can we have a tangible and clear impact upon the lives of individuals and communities?
Organizations in Honduras ask for international presence and accompaniment. So Peace Watch is in contact with different communities who have asked us to do so and who find themselves in a struggle. Our observers visit them regularly. They are present at meetings with authorities, in judicial hearings, and also at their manifestations. We report on what we observe, and we share this information with other actors engaged in human rights in Honduras.
Bueno, para nosotros, PISGUA es una organización que defiende derechos humanos.
For us, Peace Watch is an organization that stands up and lobbies for human rights. In Zacate Grande, Peace Watch accompanies and supports human rights defenders. This means that if we have to attend meetings, like for instance court hearings, or we gather in public demanding our rights, the police and the military know that observers from other countries are accompanying us. This leads to a less aggressive behavior towards us, as was the case when there were no human rights observers. The presence of international observers functions like a protective shield for us, the human rights defenders in Zacate Grande.
Hay una organización como PISGUA aquí en Zacate Grande.
During my mission in Honduras, we worked together with OFRANE, an organization which fights for the rights of the indigenous people of Garifunas. The Garifunas live at the wonderful coast at the Caribbean Sea, which is very interesting for touristic projects. One day, when we were in the region, there was an emergency. The community of Baravieja had to be evicted. When we arrived at the scenery, there were about 20 police officers and 30 soldiers in front of the people who live in this community. The situation was very tense, but about 5 minutes later, the forced arms stepped back because they recognized us as international human rights defenders. This is a very strong example which shows that international presence in Honduras has an effect.
Our human rights observers provide protective presence to deter Israeli military and armed Israeli settlers from using violence against civilians and infringing upon their human rights. Protective presence, for example, allows shepherds to graze their sheep and goat with less fear of being attacked by settlers or by being driven off their land by Israeli soldiers. It also makes children and school personnel feel safer on their way to school when having to pass by Israeli settlements. Our observers also visit families facing evictions, attend court hearings, and when necessary, organize a lawyer or put them in touch with organizations that can help. They also report on raids, confiscations, and arrests, especially of minors, and monitor checkpoints and agricultural gates.
Palestinian farmers of Beit Iksa, north of Jerusalem, are denied free access to their own land because of the wall. They are therefore planning to hold their Friday prayers at the agriculture gate to appeal to the Israeli military to open the gate for them. Their olive trees are in urgent need of care. It's already March. We accompany the farmers. It's on a bright spring day. In a flash, the military jeep is on the spot as the farmers kneel in 2 rows to pray. The atmosphere is extremely tense, almost crackling in the air. Who among the farmers was the first to approach the soldiers after their prayers and address them directly? I don't know. I didn't see it. But a conversation ensued. Access to the land was not provided in the next week as promised. but a little later it was. The president of the council village, which comprises 16 Palestinian villages, he told us, first, nothing happened, but we followed up. Thank you so much that you were staying with us. The images of an unexpected visit to a school are another of my strong and touching memories. School children were sitting so close together, elbow to elbow. I couldn't write like that. But at the end, they sang a song for me in the corridor. And the headmistress said, "We want to thank you so much. We want our schoolgirls to know that we are not forgotten and that they as well have to help each other."
Peace Watch Switzerland is part of the Ecumenical Accompaniment Program in Palestine and Israel. The program is coordinated by the World Council of Churches and was established in 2002. Since then, over 1,500 observers from 21 countries have joined the program. Peace Watch conducts a 6-day training to prepare observers for the duties on the ground. We provide them with knowledge and tools for them to be able to deal with being in a conflict-laden region and dealing with stressful and traumatic events. Through our presence, local communities can go about their daily lives feeling a little bit safer and in some cases with less infringements on their human rights. Through our solidarity, we show Israeli and Palestinian activists that they are not alone and not forgotten. And through our advocacy, we amplify the local voices and bring awareness to the Swiss public and policymakers.
Peace Watch is running its program in Honduras with local staff of 3 members and with the team of international observers. All international observers work with a humanitarian visa. Our program is embedded in a wider program of other actors for protection of human rights defenders. With our work, we contribute to safety and security of communities and their representatives. We give also a moral support through our presence and our solidarity. With that, we contribute to that communities can act in their own right.
We are Swiss Church Aid. We are currently active in more than 30 countries with relief and development projects. For us, it's very important in order to achieve sustainable development and peace that human rights are respected. And that's exactly what Peace Watch does, to protect human rights defenders and to protect a civil society. And that's why we have been partnering with Peace Watch for many, many years. We have worked together in contexts such as Honduras, Colombia, but also Israel-Palestine. And currently in Honduras, we're working together in 2 projects, 2 EU-funded projects, where the aim is to protect human rights and to transform conflicts. Now, in Honduras, if you work towards human rights, you lead a dangerous life. And therefore, it's really important that there's a minimum of protection and security for human rights defenders. And that's exactly what Peace Watch does, with its presence of its volunteers, to show solidarity, but also to protect by its presence. And that's why we are continuing to work together with Peace Watch. They really strengthen our development work where we work together.
The key principles of our work are: we do not interfere with conflicts. We are impartial. We are not mediators or intermediaries. We are observers. We only offer assistance if a struggle for human rights remains nonviolent. And we report about what we have seen and raise awareness in the general public in Switzerland for the concerns of the communities we support. And finally, we only take action upon invitation of individuals or organizations. Do you have any questions about the work of Peace Watch? Would you like to know more about the way we accompany communities and individuals? Or could you imagine that an accompaniment as shown in this video could bring protection to you individually or your community? Please contact us at info@peacewatch.ch. Thank you very much for your attention, and we're really looking forward to hearing from you.